Hey traders, Cousin Benny coming to you from closingprint.com on February the 8th, 2015. We will be looking at the indices in the first part of this video and then some setups in the second part of this video. Currently, SPY, Comp, the Russell are all at recent highs. SPY and the Comp have been trading in a horizontal range, as we pointed out previously. Tick and Tick Q cumulative are both bullish for the NYSE and the Comp, and NYSE and NASI summation is bullish. New York high-low, the net new highs minus net new lows, continues to be positive. And we have no major accumulation or distribution days in the past week. The bond stock ratio, the 65 MA, is flat, and price was rejected at that point. And of course, seasonality, February, March, and April is fairly high for this part of the year. Sectors remain mixed at best, and notable are crude and commodities, whether or not we see a dead cat bounce or a change of trend. Here is a chart of the spiders, which many people have been pointing out over the last few days. This horizontal range that we've been in. Prices are right at this volume by price resistance bar, and we touched the upper Bollinger Band on Friday. Note stochastics is overbought and appears to turn down shortly. We have seen periods where the spiders have been embedded and stayed embedded for a couple of weeks. However, in this sideways range, we're either going to break higher or move lower, possibly down to the 204 level, which is the site of the 50-period moving average, which I think is more likely given the sector analysis that I will go over with you in a moment. The NASDAQ composite looks pretty much the same in this horizontal range that we've been pointing out over the last couple of weeks. Taking the pivots of these highs and lows, we see the 382 is right at the 50-period moving average. We have this volume by price bar, and we do have a lot of volume by price congestion here, where prices have been banging around in this area in this horizontal range. We nearly touched the upper Bollinger Band, so we are lagging the spiders currently, and as I'll point out in a few minutes, we noted that the NASDAQ Tick Q was elevated early in the morning and tapered off to around the 1 level towards the end of the day. But in the early morning, it was right around plus 1.4. So the NASDAQ is not performing as well as the spiders are. So that is a negative for the markets going into the week. Note the stochastics is overbought and could turn lower. And the number of stocks trading above their 50-period moving average is right at 53%. Now, the Russell 2000 looks a little bit better, only in the fact that we are trading near these highs. We pushed outside of the upper Bollinger Band and we got rejected there. We broke out of this little triangle pattern, and the 50-period moving average as well as the 10 EMA are pointing higher. Stochastics, however, is overbought, and MACD looks like the histogram is starting to stall. So we'll be watching the Russell this week. The S&P Midcap 400 Index, we can see a spinning top on Friday, touched the upper Bollinger Band, and is currently moving sideways. Stochastics is overbought and turning, and MACD we'll be watching on Monday, Tuesday as well. Here is a chart of the S&P 500 monthly, which I've been pointing out for the past several weeks, in that we have a MACD cross. This past week, still hovering around the -2, -3 level. But what I want you to notice is slow stochastics is below 80 at 79.08 on the monthly. So far we're only 1 week into the month, so volume hasn't shown its direction yet, but with the MACD cross and the stochastics where it is, I'm a little reluctant to get too bullish with the spiders trading in a daily horizontal range. Looking at a chart of the XII, the ARCA Institutional Index, this is a index of 75 stocks that are most commonly found in institutions' core portfolios, and therefore it gives us an indication of what institutions are buying or selling. Note Stoch RSI, MACD is positive, but slow stochastics is overbought as well and could turn lower shortly. We are still in that horizontal range that we saw on the other indices, and we didn't touch the upper Bollinger Band. We have a green stick on Elder. So we'll be watching this index. The S&P 500 with the up-down volume on the New York Stock Exchange overlaid. We can see that we had some interesting volume last week. We had almost a 50% spike in accumulation on Thursday, and on Monday we had an 80% up day. For the remaining week we have a little bit of distribution, but not that much in the way of a major distribution or major accumulation day. A chart of the US dollar, as we have been posting over the last several weeks and into the end of the year, continues to be on this major bull market trajectory. MACD continues to move higher, and prices saw some hesitation last week. So we did see buyers, however, push prices right back up to the 95.85 level. Note stochastics are overbought and could turn. They could also stay embedded like they've had in the past for a number of months and continue to move higher. That would be a tailwind for stocks if this continues to move higher. The 30-year bond, this is the monthly chart. Note the descending trend line. We did push off of the lows that we saw that we haven't seen since World War II. We're back at the 25.19 level, or 2.519% on the 30-year yield. Stochastics is oversold, could be turning, and MACD could be as well. So we'll be watching yields going into the week. Looking at TLT on the daily, we noted that we were oversold and could see a turn in this indicator as well. We did see some selling. We had the 50-period moving average rushing up underneath price, and we have the lower Bollinger Band as well as a previous breakout level right around the 131, 132 level on TLT. And here is the bond stock ratio, which, if you follow this, the S&P weekly is moving sideways. The 65-period moving average on the bond stock ratio, the UST to SPX, is starting to flatten out somewhat, and we saw prices, the ratio rejected at the 65 EMA last week. So we'll be watching this to see if it continues to move lower or if this oscillates back in the other direction and breaks through, which would be bearish for stocks over the next several weeks. Looking at the Bombay Stock Exchange, which has led the S&P 500 and other indices around the world over the last several years. This is the monthly chart. Note that the slow stochastics has turned lower on this index, so keep an eye on the BSE. The FTSE at highs, looks like it could break higher. Watch MACD and the Bollinger Bands for an expansion here. No, MACD's turning. Histogram looks like it's turning as well, so the FTSE is looking pretty good. The Hang Seng, note stochastics is turning up on the monthly chart, and Bollinger Bands are fairly tight, trading along this range around the 25,000 level. Nikkei continues to move higher. Slow stochastics is, however, overbought on the monthly. Philippine Stock Exchange at highs, and stochastic continued to point higher. Shanghai Stock Exchange flagging out here on the monthly chart. Stochastics is moving lower, so look for this to pull back in, possibly to the rising 10 EMA, the blue line. We also see the Keltner channel here. So the Shanghai Stock Exchange could pull in a little bit. The Euro Stoxx 600, this one's been outperforming over the last several weeks, so watch European stocks with the ECB easing. You can see a flag here on the weekly, and Bollinger Bands are expanding. Stoch RSI is embedded, and we have slow stow up here in the embedded range as well. So the European stocks look pretty good with the ECB easing, so we'd be watching this index very closely next week. So let's take a look at the sectors for a moment, because this is what I found most interesting. Gold gap down. We're sitting right at this volume by price support level, and we see slow stow continuing to move lower. We had a MACD cross, and slow stow could continue to move lower, and Stoch RSI is embedded. This is the thing I was monitoring over the weekend, in that IYR, which was looking very good off the 20 period moving average, failed and came down and touched the lower Bollinger Band on Friday. MACD cross and slow stow turned back down. IYT, the transports, we have a spinning top at the 50 period moving average and this large volume by price congestion area. MACD's moving sideways and slow stow is overbought. The semiconductors, we had a nasty candle on Friday back below the 50 and the 10 period EMA. This volume by price congestion area, and slow stow is in overbought territory. The regional banking index showed the most promise last week, pushed outside of the upper part of this Keltner channel, which is also around the third standard deviation on the Bollinger Band, so I would expect to see this pull back in side of this volume by price congestion area. Note slow stow is overbought. This all sets up for a possibility of a move back in the range on the spiders. XBI spinning top below the 10 period EMA and the 20 period, 50 period moving average underneath, and volume by price resistance right where price is. Slow stow looks the best on this sector, so we could see this either turn up or turn down. Note the intense volume here, so we'll be watching that. The housing sector, XHB, 2 inside days, Thursday and Friday. Slow stow is turning back down. I'm starting to see this on most of the sectors. XLB Materials was looking good last week, pushed above the 20 period and all the EMAs all the way up here, flagging above this volume by price level, but slow stow is overbought currently and could see a push back down. So this is starting to set up for a possibility for lower prices early in the week on the spiders, possibly push down to 204 level before attempting a long setup. XLE Energy has looked pretty good, slow stow turning. XLF, which a number of people were pointing out as a positive last week, touched the upper Bollinger Band, came back down, and is sitting currently on top of this volume by price level and the 50 period moving average. Note the volume, and slow stow is overbought here as well. MACD looks positive and could continue, so we were watching histogram on Monday to see if this moves lower, indicating a possible change in momentum. The industrials, XLI spinning top, touched the upper Bollinger Band. We have volume by price support here. We're in the sideways range. slow stow is overbought. You'll start to see a recurring theme here. XLK technology sector sitting right at the 50-period moving average, followed by price level support, sideways range inside of the Bollinger Bands, slow stow overbought. XLP consumer staples closed right at the 10-period EMA, slow stow overbought. MACD is starting to hesitate and could move lower. XLU got whacked on Friday, nasty candle down below the 50-period moving average, and I would expect the upper and lower Bollinger Bands to spread apart. If we hold at the 46 level, that would be possibly a bounce area or a little bit lower. Note slow stow is continuing to move lower though, and MACD looks pretty bad as well as volume. XLV, the healthcare sector, seemed to look the best. Closed at the 50-period moving average. We have this large volume by price congestion area. If we drop down below that area, we could see lower prices on the sector that's actually been doing quite well all year, moving sideways in a choppy pattern, possibly continue to do that with that sector looking pretty good. Note where slow stow is. It could turn back up, could turn down, so we'll be watching the healthcare sector this week. XLY, consumer discretionary. The cyclicals, note the spinning top here at the upper Bollinger Band and Keltner channel, volume by price support down here, slow stow overbought and could move lower. Now these are some industry groups and indexes that Stock Charts puts together. The Global Titans, this is typically the top 30 to top 50 movers and shakers in these groups that the Dow has as a index. Notes, the thing I want you to focus on is where prices are relative to the upper Bollinger Band, the 50-period moving average, and where slow stow is on all of these. This is the business cycle index. Note it's turning down off of this upper Bollinger Band. Slow stow is turning back down. Aerospace outside the upper Bollinger Band, moving back in. Slow stow overbought, turning down. Material equipment index, note slow stow, and where prices are, Bollinger Bands are basically moving sideways and compressing. Pharmaceutical index, this one again, part of the healthcare sector, is doing better in terms of where slow stow is and price action at the upper Bollinger Band. Dow Jones Titans 30 index is the top 30 banks. Upper Bollinger Band moving back in, slow stow overbought, could turn back down. We could conceivably move down to the ascending 10-period EMA or the 20-period. Note where previous support and resistance is on this index. Basic resources, top 30 again. We're above the 50-period moving average. Had almost an inside day. Slow stow is turning back down. The top 30 chemical companies in this index, slow stow is turning back down. Construction and materials, Bollinger Bands are starting to expand. We're starting to turn and change trend. However, the slow stow is overbought and could turn down. So we could see a move back down to the 10 EMA or the 50 or the 20. So keep an eye on that this week as well in that group. Food and beverages, nasty candle on Friday, came back down and held the 20-period moving average, the dotted line. Slow stow is pointing to lower prices. So if you're looking to short some names in this group, I would look at food and beverage stocks. Personal household goods, the top 30. Bollinger Bands are tightening, prices right at the 50-period moving average, and slow stow turning back down. Insurance, the top 30. Slow stow, again embedded, and could turn down, overbought. The media, top 30 media names, flagging out here at the upper Bollinger Band, slow stow, again overbought. You see the recurring theme that I'm looking at here. Telecommunications, quite a range on Friday. AT&T looked good if I remember correctly, as well as Verizon. Look at the slow stow. However, it is overbought, could pull back in, so we could pull down to the 10-period EMA in this case. Utilities, we got whacked as we pointed out earlier, and slow stow is getting into the oversold range, which could turn back up and signal a change in the fate of the utility sector. Auto parts looking pretty good. We have a volume by price support level here. Outside the upper Bollinger Band, slow stow is overbought and could turn back down. So we could see a move back down to the 10-period EMA and possibly the 50. Look at Advanced Auto Parts. I think the symbol is AAP. That stock is one of the better ones in the group. Dow Jones US Steel Index, nice descending pattern. Upper Bollinger Band, we've got the 50-period moving average overhead, and we have this large volume by price level overhead as well. Slow stow is overbought. Personal and household goods, tightening Bollinger Bands, prices sitting right on the 50-period moving average, and slow stow turning down. So you're starting to see some interesting things in these sectors individually and as groups that are giving some indication as what we could see in the week ahead. There are a number of other ones. Just keep looking at the slow stow here, and you can start to see the same thing over and over. Same pattern: price, slow stow, price, upper Bollinger Band, slow stow, upper Bollinger Band, slow stow, upper Bollinger Band, retail, slow stows turning, midline, 20-period moving average on the technology sector, and we're overbought. That doesn't look good for technology. Telecommunications, slow stow. Travel and leisure, slow stow is just above 50. Looks like it's turning back down. Prices are moving back down. Sat on the 20-period moving average. Perhaps the 50 is in the cards. Aluminum looked pretty good last week. Slow stow is turning abruptly and looks like it's moving lower as well. Petroleum, we had that first bounce. If you looked at New Carl's post over the weekend, perhaps you recall that he was talking about the first bounce could be rejected on the petroleum index, WTIC, and possibly a move lower before we move higher. Slow stow has moved lower as well, indicating we could see a little bit of a downside move on the petroleum and crude indexes. So let's take a look at the Dow 30 components. And this will kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking at for the week. Note, on the financial side, American Express, slow stow is overbought. MACD is somewhat positive. We'll watch histogram for a continuation or a smaller stick here, with prices getting rejected right at the 20-period moving average in this large volume by price level congestion area overhead. Boeing has been doing quite well, an ascending pennant pattern. Slow stow is embedded and could turn back down. It could stay embedded like it has in the past, but note at the upper Bollinger Band, previous occurrences where it embedded, like we saw here and here in May, June, and also in November, that we were rejected off of the lower Bollinger Band and moved lower. So I would anticipate prices moving back on Boeing to at least the 10-period moving average. Best case scenario, we flag out here sideways while slow stow moves back down and turns again. Caterpillar, descending pattern, lower prices, slow stow rejected at the 80 level. Cisco technology, remember, isn't looking that great. NASDAQ is lagging the S&P 500 and the Russell, and we see slow stow turning here as well. MACD is looking somewhat weaker. CVX, integrated oil and gas, same comments here, volume by price, resistance level overhead, slow stow overbought. DuPont Chemicals, slow stow overbought, and we are flagging here outside the upper Bollinger Band at 52-week highs. MACD looks somewhat positive as well. Disney moving outside the upper Bollinger Band on earnings, flagging out, could see a move sideways. Note previous times where we've gotten embedded and where prices were relative to the upper Bollinger Band, and how prices either moved off or moved sideways, so we could expect the same with slow stow overbought on Disney. GE, long-legged doji pushing off of the upper Bollinger Band, a lot of congestion overhead, slow stow turning back down. Goldman Sachs, another one of the big banks. Note all of this volume by price congestion, slow stow overbought. We could see prices move back down to the 20-period moving average. We could see embedding here and a test of the upper Bollinger Band and the 50-period moving average before moving lower. We'll have to watch GS and the other big banks this week. Home Depot at the upper Bollinger Band, spinning top. Slow stow is overbought. This is why I'm concerned about a move higher presently in the spiders, the NASI, as well as some of the other indexes. IBM continues to move sideways in this range. Upper Bollinger Band right here above price. We have this volume by price congestion level. I'd love to trade this long once we get back above this level here, above the 168, 164, 165 level on IBM. Slow stow is overbought and turning. Intel, we note this volume by price bar level. If we drop below that level, this might be a good short going into this reverse Kirby on this big chip name. Note slow stow is turning and could turn back down. Keep an eye on semiconductors. Note MACD signal line is starting to turn back down again, and we'll be watching histogram as well. Johnson & Johnson, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, as well as consumer products. Note the price action here at this volume by price level. And this descending pattern, we could see this lower trend line before we move higher, with slow stow indicating that's a more likely possibility. MACD is getting rejected here, and MACD histogram didn't get positive by much. JP Morgan Chase, another big bank, rejected just under the 50-period moving average. Note the volume by price congestion. That's giving me an indication slow stow is turning, pointing down, that we could see the 20-period or the 10-period EMA before we see a push back up higher. Note MACD is giving us a contradictory signal, so this could push back up. We just need to be watching the banks going into the week. Coca-Cola, we traded this one. That prices look like they could move lower. Slow stow is hesitating, and MACD is moving lower as well. McDonald's been in the sideways range for a while. Volume by price congestion level. Slow stow is overbought and turning. 3M, one of the better Dow 30 stocks, looking decent. Hit the upper Bollinger Band, spinning top, long-legged doji. Slow stow overbought here as well. MACD moving sideways for the most part. Merck, the pharmaceuticals looking weak, down below this volume by price level, and slow stow getting to oversold. Note histogram. Microsoft had earnings. We're back to the 10-period moving average, testing that. Had a little bit of a selling there. Slow stow is overbought, could turn back down, and watch the histogram here. Nike, we're noting that a few people have looked at this as a short. If this loses this lower trend line on this descending wedge, we have this volume by price support levels, a likely area to cover, and slow stow is pointing to lower prices as well as MACD. Pfizer at the upper Bollinger Band, looking better than Merck. Slow stow is, however, overbought. Nice volume. We're looking for some consolidation here before moving higher on Pfizer. PG, note the rejection at the 10-period moving average, EMA, and slow stow turning down. MACD looking like it's going to point to lower prices. AT&T, as I mentioned before, telecommunications looking a little better. Watch this sector for possible setups. Slow stow is overbought and could turn back down, however. Look for major support here at these volume by price level bands, and we also could see the 10-period moving average as support as well. Travelers Insurance, moving sideways pattern like we saw on SPY. Slow stow overbought. MACD continues its downward trend. United Healthcare, healthcare providers looking better. Bollinger Bands tightening. Ascending 50-period moving average, holding above the 20. 10-period just overhead. Slow stow could turn up or could turn down, so this one could go either way. United Technologies, aerospace, spinning top, long-legged doji, didn't make it back to the upper Bollinger Band. We have volume by price support. We have the 10 period EMA and the 20 below, and slow stow again is turning down. BISA at the upper Bollinger Band, slow stow overbought, could turn back down. Verizon, way outside the upper Bollinger Band, third standard deviation, we expect to see prices move lower on this name as well. Walmart, spinning top, long-legged doji, right there at the 20 period moving average, rejected. 50 period below and the 10 period, slow stow overbought as well. And integrated oil and gas, ExxonMobil at this major trend line, volume by price congestion, slow stow overbought. So you can see what we're looking at going into the week. We're anticipating that we might see lower prices before seeing higher prices on the S&P as well as the other indices. So that's it for now. We're going to post some charts in a little while. So check back with the blog later tonight when I'll post some charts for your use going into the week. Okay, so this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com. For you new traders, be sure to check out these top 5 or 6 videos, which will give you a better edge on understanding the markets, taking setups, and where to position yourself for the highest risk reward on your trade. In addition, if you don't subscribe to the blog, this is a spam-free site. Enter your email address in here and you can get these delivered to your email every day. You'll note my tweets are here, the watch list for the week or the day. You can just scroll down through these, keeping track of the trades that we're looking at, whether they're high tight flags or Bollinger Band setups. It's also a place for me to document the trades and thoughts going into the weeks. So I hope this helps. Take care. We'll talk to you on the stream on Monday.